Hello, a very warm welcome to Sportsbet TV. Once again, Paul Alster here with you, and I'm looking forward to some really excellent racing across Britain on Saturday, the 24th of April, where I'll have 4 each way selections for you, and that rarest of things, I'll also be putting up a win bet, which was only the second in the last 6 months. Now, I'm going to go back to what happened last week very shortly. But if you're new to the service, do press the subscribe button that's just below this screen. Then you'll be able to keep in touch with all my messages. And there's going to be more and more bulletins as we really get into the meat of the flat season with so much great racing coming up over the next few weeks and months. That'll keep you in touch with all sorts of things, and there'll be plenty, I promise you, to look forward to. I'm always looking for very good value with my horses. Most of them are tipped each way at quite big odds. So do expect some big price horses being suggested here, unlike many other tipping services. But before I go any further, we've had a very, very difficult week in the world of horse racing. And it was an absolute tragedy to learn of the passing of Lorna Brooke earlier this week. Following the injury she sustained in a fall at Taunton. Now, Lorna was only 37 years old. She was an amateur jockey and a very talented one. She was the daughter of Lady Susan Brooke, and she was an absolute enthusiast who not only rode the horses, but also trained them alongside her mother, and she groomed them and she drove the horse box and she did everything. She took a fall at the final fence at Taunton, which tragically has proved fatal. It's such a rarity, particularly these days, that such an awful thing happens. And all I can say, to add to all the many tributes, including one from Aidan Coleman on Racing TV this week, which was absolutely gut-wrenching, is just to send our condolences to her family and friends. And as Lee Mottershead wrote in the Racing Post, and I thought he put it really well, she was such a happy, enthusiastic person. He wrote, "Remember her joy, but be reminded of the dangers." And that's the sport that we all love. And these jockeys do place themselves on the line every time they go out. So when we're moaning and groaning about a bit of bad luck on a bet or losing a fiver here or a couple of quid there, it just doesn't stack up, does it really, when we consider what's happened to Lorna Brooke. May she rest in peace. Well, let's go back to the racing and the tips for this week. Just before that, last week's selection was a bit of a mixed bag. We've been having a thin month in April, to be honest, so far, after an exemplary Cheltenham. And people that are new to the service will maybe not be aware that I've showed profits for each of the last 6 months, and some very big profits with some very big price winners at odds all the way through from 5, 10, 12, 16, 18, 20, 66, and even 80 to 1 at the Cheltenham Festival. But so far this month, it's been a little bit quiet, and that's the way it goes when you're tipping big price horses. You have a few troughs, and we've had a bit of a trough so far this month. Now, Tommy's Oscar ran well at Ayr. He was a very good third, having come through to put in a really solid challenge at the second last in the Scottish Champion Hurdle. 8 to 1 each way, that showed a profit. He knows no fear. For me, was still in with a chance, a furlong and a half out over in Ireland in the big handicap there, when he was knocked sideways by the eventual winner, who came right across the track, took out 2 or 3 horses, and he was one of those whose jockey simply had to stop riding. So that was just unfortunate. In the Scottish National, now my main selection there was a horse called Chef Dover, who I put up at 66 to 1. And it's not for the first time. And I know a lot of you are following me, but whether there's a connection or not, his odds absolutely crashed from 66 to 1, eventually going off at 14 to 1. And going out onto the final circuit, he was towards the rear before moving up into the sort of leading 8 or 9. And I thought he was going to really put in a big effort, but his run petered out and he didn't quite get home, I think, over the 4 miles for the first time. But it was a very interesting move, a lot of money for that horse. The other one was Soldier of Love, who led for much of the way in the Scottish National before losing his place and pulling up. And there does appear to be an issue with that horse, I suspect, a breathing problem. And then down at Newbury on Saturday, Jim Palace, who ran well for a long way, first run of the season, got a little bit tired in the closing stages, and to be fair to his jockey, she looked after him and didn't knock him about. So I'll be keeping an eye on Jim Palace for when he reappears. So on to this Saturday, and well, it's the final day of the jump season in Britain at Sandown Park, as always, bringing down the curtain on the campaign. To be honest, racing in Britain over the jumps has taken a bit of a battering this season. The Irish have been completely rampant, and I think it says a lot about the investment in British horse racing as far as prize money and the type of races that are being staged, and maybe you could argue too much racing, too much low quality racing sometimes, that the Irish have completely dominated. But we have to pass on congratulations, of course, to Harry Skelton, who will be crowned champion jockey on Saturday. Brilliant achievement from a fantastic jockey. And once again, Paul Nicholls crowned the champion trainer with a record number of winners. A marvellous performance from him. And also, of course, Danny McMenamin, who is the champion conditional jockey, and he is definitely a young jockey who is going places. So well done indeed to him. Now, my first selection on Saturday is at Sandown in the 155 race, which is a red-hot 2-mile novices handicap hurdle final. 14 runners. At the time of this recording on Friday lunchtime, they're betting 6-1 the field. To be honest, I've been through this race backwards and forwards, and I don't think you can rule any of them out. One I thought would go very well is a horse called Pazlovsky, and I was seriously considering recommending him, but in the end, I've gone with a horse called On to Victory, who's trained by Alan King and is the mount of Tom Cannon. And Alan's horses had a bit of a dip in form, but they're running really well now. And this On to Victory is a very talented dual-purpose horse. He goes well on a decent surface, and the going forecast at Sandown is good to firm in places, which I think should suit him. Now, he was rated up to 108 on the flat. He's been placed in listed company. He was fourth in the Melrose handicap at the Ebor fixture once. And of course, he won last season's November handicap over 1.5 miles on soft ground, off a mark of 99. So he's a very useful horse. He won his maiden hurdle at Wincanton in January. He did that in good style. And then Alan King threw him in very much at the deep end in the Betfair hurdle in February, that red-hot 2-mile handicap hurdle, where he was still in there with a chance between the final two flights before fading and eventually finishing 10th of the 23 behind Soaring Eagle. Now that would be a much better race than this, in my opinion. I think he acquitted himself very well there. He went on to win a Warwick Novices Hurdle on March the 14th off 125, and he did it in eye-catching fashion. And for me, I was surprised he's only gone up £2. So with the strong gallop that I think will suit him and bring his stamina into play up that Sandown hill, the 13-2 that is on offer each way for 4 places with William Hills, I think is really good value. Now, he may drift, and I know that Bet365 are offering 7-1 at the time of this recording, but that's only for 3 places. So as I always tell my followers, do try and bet with a bookmaker who's going to give you the best odds guarantee and give you the SP odds. If they're bigger than the odds you'd take, it can make a huge difference to your success and profit and loss at the end of the season. So my first one on Saturday, 155 Sandown, 13-2 each way is the suggestion. On to Victory for Alan King and Tom Cannon. Now my second selection is in the big one at Sandown. There are so many big ones. Of course, Altior is going to be in action. Frodon, Put the Kettle On. But in the 340, we've got the Bet365 Gold Cup, which oldies like me still call the Whitbread Gold Cup. It's the great season-ending staying handicap, 3 miles, 5 furlongs, 16 runners. There's only one Irish horse in here, and those of you I know will want to be on it. It's called Plan of Attack, and it's the star turns of Rachel Blackmore and Henry de Bromhead. Now, the Irish have been doing so well, and some argue they've been well handicapped. I just think they've got basically, for the most part, better horses at the moment, and that's why they're winning. And Plan of Attack was going well at Cheltenham. I think it was in the Kinmuir when he fell at the 3rd last. Now, he's got a good mark of 138, and he is 4-1 favourite. The only question mark is the trip. I think he will handle the ground. And at 4-1, I think that's a bit skinny in such a hot handicap, but it would be no surprise to see Plan of Attack win, but he's not going to be my recommendation. Now, I've gone through this race so many times, I was getting dizzy last night. There are form lines here that tie in so closely between 4 particular horses. And those 4 horses are the 5-year-old Kitty's Light, who's a baby, a precocious talent, a really fabulous young horse. His form lines tie in very closely with a horse called El Presente, also with Potterman, and also with Irish Prophecy. They've been taking each other on, and there really is very little between them on a point of handicapping. And I've considered all their chances very clearly. Now, there's also one at big odds that I thought might run well, but he's 13 years old, and I can't see a 13-year-old winning this, and that is Doing Fine, who's a 33-1 shot. He may well run a big race, but I think he'll find 1 or 2 too good. And it is after much consideration that I've eventually come down on the side amongst that quartet I previously mentioned of El Presente, who's trained by Kim Bailey and is the mount of David Bass. Now, this horse is really progressive. He already has proven he stays 3 miles, 1 furlong very well, and I think he'll get this trip, the extra half mile. He loves a decent surface, and he's improved so much this season. 23 pounds. He beat Potterman a short head in the Badger Beers Chase, the listed race at Wincanton in November. And after that, he was rested. And Kim Bailey went on record in November as saying he was training El Presente for the Bet365 Gold Cup at Sandown in April. Now, he's not the only one to say that. Emma Lavelle said that as well about Irish Prophecy. And Kitty's Light has also had this in mind. I think it's Christian Williams that trains that one. But Kim Bailey is a past master at laying them out. His horses are in form. His full flow is going to Ireland to take on the Irish next week. And I think this horse is going to go really well. He's had a warm-up race at Ludlow just a few weeks ago where he blew up 2 out and clearly needed the run. And amazingly, he's been dropped a pound since then. So I think he's going to run a massive race, El Presente. I'm sure he's going to be thereabouts. And at the time of this recording, he's 7-1 each way for 5 places, which I think is well worth bearing in mind, with Ladbrokes, Betfred, Boyle Sports, and Genting Bet. So eventually I come down on the side of El Presente in the Bet365 Gold Cup. Now, later on at Sandown, the last race there of the afternoon, indeed, the last race of the 2020-21 season is the 525. They're betting 5-1 the field for a 2.5 mile handicap hurdle for which 15 run. I'm not going to go through them all. I'm coming straight to the horse that I'm interested in. And this is the horse that is so unexposed, I could be completely right or be barking up the wrong tree, or just barking, as some people might say. The horse in question is called L'Homme Presse. He's trained by Venetia Williams and is the mount of the 7-pound conditional jockey Lucy Turner. Now, this horse had 2 runs in France in French 4-year-old hurdles back in 2019, where he showed ability, finishing second in one of them. And then he was off the course, obviously had problems, missed over 2 years. And then he appeared on this side of the channel, being trained by Venetia Williams. Now, as we know, most of Venetia's horses like soft ground. But straight away, she started this horse off at Chepstow on the 10th of April, just a couple of weeks ago, on decent ground. It was only a moderate race, but if you get the chance to see L'Homme Presse in this race, even allowing for a slight stumble at the second last, he went past the other horses like they were standing still, like really, he went like a knife through butter through the field, took over from the front runner just after the second last, and he just went further and further clear on the bridle. And I think he won by 20 odd lengths. Very, very easy. That was in a handicap. It's really hard to assess. They put him up 7 pounds. I think he's going to run really well. And the really good thing is that Lucy Turner claims the 7 pounds here. So I think L'Homme Presse could be anything. And so interesting that Venetia has a horse who can really go for it on a decent surface. And he could well prove to be a very good horse, unless he has been incredibly flattered. But to my eyes, and watching the leg speed of the horse, which is always something I advise you to take a close look at, horses in the closing stages, if their leg speed is still being maintained, that's always a sign to me that the horse has got a lot more to offer. And he's 7-1 for 4 places each way at the time of this recording with William Hill and Unibet. But it will be no surprise at all to see this horse drift, because this is a hugely competitive race. And some people might just say, some of the bookies, well, he won an egg and spoon race at Chepstow. This is a different gear, and he's going to be finding it a lot tougher. But I'm prepared to take a chance that he might well have a lot more to give. And that's Long Press in the 5.25 each way at Sandown. Now, those of you that like to do an each way Yankee or an each way Lucky 15 on my selections or similar, we'll have to wait until the 8 o'clock race at Doncaster for my last recommendation. I also have one other bet, remember, a win bet, which I'll come to very soon. But the Doncaster 8 o'clock is a 1 mile amateur riders race over the straight mile, and there are 19 runners. Now, in these amateur riders races, especially on a straight course, they normally go like the clappers, and with some of the less experienced riders, it's the horses who take charge and they decide how fast they want to go. But there are a few very talented amateur riders in the race, including Serena Brotherton, who rides Covilia, Patrick Millman, who rides Mercurist, and Emily Easterby, who's on Macaulay. Now, not surprisingly, the bookmakers have made a market, and I understand this completely, based on as much of the form of the horses as the ability of the jockeys, and that's sensible. And these three are all around 11-2, 6-1. But I thought I'd have a look at this race and spend a little bit of time on it. And there was one horse that jumped out at me as a potential overpriced runner. And the horse is called Global Exceed. Now, he's trained by Callan Tutty and is the mount of Miss Amy Collier. Now, this horse has only won one race since 2017, and that was last year at Redcar in June. And Redcar, the mile there is a similar straight mile to the mile they're going to be tackling at Doncaster. Now, he won there off a mark of 55, and it was his second start of the season. And what do you know? This is his second start of the season here, and having run off 57 on his comeback run the other day when he was hampered, I think that was at Newcastle, he's been dropped back to 55 once again. So he's back on a straight mile for the first time since his win last year. He's back to the same mark, and it's also his second run of the season, as it was when he won last year. Now, Amy Collier doesn't ride very often. She's only had 45 rides in the last 5 seasons, as far as I can tell, but she has won 5 of them, which is not a bad strike rate. But it's an even better strike rate when you notice that all 5 came when riding for Callan Tutty, 5 from 23, which is a terrific strike rate for an amateur jockey. And if you'd have level stakes bets on her mount, she'd be showing a £29 profit level stakes. So it's my view that Callan Tutty turns to Amy Collier when she has one that she thinks he's going to run well in one of the amateur riders races. She's able to claim his Amy. It's a straight mile. She's ridden the horse before. Now, there's only one firm up, and all credit to William Hills for putting their head above the parapet. Where are the others? They're just like sheep, just waiting to follow. Where are the other bookmakers going up early? Only William Hills. They've gone up early 33-1 each way. I think that's a really good sporting bet. She's the outsider of the field. 5 places are on offer with William Hill. That price may go, then again, who knows, it might drift. But I think that's a sporting bet for a horse who will likely run better than its odds suggest. Global Exceed, Doncaster, 8 o'clock in their last race of the day. So that's the 4 each way selections. As I've mentioned before, I very rarely tip a win horse. The last horse I tipped to win was a month and a half ago. It was Live, Love, Laugh over in Ireland. It got beaten in the very last stride at odds of 100-30. That was my first win bet, I think, since November. But there is one that really does interest me at Leicester. Many of you may not want to play at the odds that are offered, but I know some of you do like to consider shorter prices. And it's in the last race at Leicester on Saturday, the 4:30, which is a 7 furlong handicap for 3-year-olds only. Now, with 3-year-olds in the handicaps, one of the big imponderables is whether or not the horses have trained on to the same level, or whether they've gone backwards, or whether they've progressed. Now, there's a horse in this race called KINGMANIA, who's a filly by Kingman, really well-bred filly, trained by Chris Wall and the mountain Pat Cosgrave, who's one of my favourite jockeys. He's really, one of those jockeys you'd want to turn to when you've got one you really fancy, if I was owning a horse. Now, this horse showed ability on its first 2 starts in maiden and the novice last season in the summer, and then it stepped up from 6 to 7 furlongs in a nursery handicap bow at Yarmouth off a mark of 66 last September, I think it was. Showed a really good attitude, quickening up very well and really coming home strongly, never better than at the finishing line to win, and already was shouting out that it needed 7 furlongs. Now, as I've mentioned, they don't always train on, but there's a couple of things here. Trainer Chris Wald is a real shrewdie. Now, 2 of his last 6 runners at the time of this recording have won. They've both been first time out this season, and they've both attracted a little bit of money. So the yard is informed, and the money often goes down when they fancy one. Now, I had a look at this horse to see what were the early odds last night. And again, it was William Hills who went up early, and I was really surprised to see they went 9 to 2. I thought that could even be an each-way recommendation for Saturday. Very quickly, that was cut to 7 to 2. Then this morning, it's 9 to 4. And then just before I've come on to record this bulletin, they've gone 2 to 1. They're still the only firm up. It may be that they just had a better 2 for this horse, and they decided to just take a pull and not go any bigger on this. And when other bookmakers come in, it might well be that they offer bigger odds, and Hills are able to balance their books. They don't want just a 1-horse book on the race. So my suggestion is this, that if KINGMANIA is 9 to 4 or bigger, it is a recommendation from me as a win bet. If it is shorter than 9 to 4, then there's no bet, because I just think that is too short in a race where there are so many horses that also could well be hiding their light under a bushel. But I was very taken with KINGMANIA last season, and giving the form of her stable and how well they're running first time out in handicaps, I think that she's very interesting if she's 9 to 4 or bigger. So that's 4 each way selections and 1 win, price dependent, for Saturday. A quick heads up as well to let you know that next week there's the wonderful Punchestown Festival, which is one of my favourite meetings of the year. It's almost a rerun of Cheltenham, and I'll be bringing you bulletins on Monday for Tuesday and Wednesday, and on Wednesday for the Thursday and Friday racing. And then on Friday, I'll be tipping as well for the weekend races at Punchestown, but of course, for the Guineas meeting at Newmarket, already time for the first classics of the season. So there's so much great racing coming up. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to pass on this link to friends who are interested in having a bet through the week and at the weekends throughout this spring and summer. And let's hope that this weekend selections give us a decent run for our money and help us to claw back a little bit of those losses from this month. But of course, if you're following me regularly, you're already quids in and miles ahead. That's it for this week. Enjoy the weekend and the better weather. Bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.